Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. 2 apologies and 1 resignation in the latest war of the sexes to hit tennis. It's not exactly Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King, the famous match won by the star women's player more than 40 years ago against the former men's number 1. But Indian Wells tournament director Ray Moore apologized and later stepped down after suggesting the women's tour had ridden on the coattails of the men's game. World number 1 Novak Djokovic then told reporters he felt the men's tour should, quote, fight for more money because their matches drew more spectators. Serena Williams and Andy Murray among those who criticized the remarks. Djokovic apologized on Facebook, saying in part, quote, euphoria and adrenaline after the win on Sunday got the best of me. By the way, it's really not just being politically correct, as it is acknowledging economic and social reality. The best team in baseball, far from the most valuable. The World Series champion Kansas City Royals, worth just $865 million according to the latest Forbes survey. The Yankees remain number 1 for the 19th consecutive year with a $3.4 billion valuation. That's up 6% from a year ago. The number 2 ranked team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, worth $2.5 billion. The average team worth $1.3 billion bucks. Labor peace, market strategy, and television and new media growth equals an economic bonanza. Kudos to Commissioner Rob Manfred. And New York may follow in the footsteps of Virginia when it comes to daily fantasy sports. The state could soon legalize the contests run by FanDuel, DraftKings, and others. Legislation is in the works to do just that. In the meantime, the 2 sites agreed to halt their business in New York State in a deal with the Attorney General, who's been battling them for months. In return, FanDuel and DraftKings won't have to pay any fines if they're found to have been operating illegally. Also, the claims against them will be dropped if daily fantasy sports are legalized in New York this year. As I've said, it's not as much about direct gambling as it is about regulation, accountability, and taxation. Now, from the boardroom to the hardwood, my conversation with Bain Capital Managing Director, Boston Celtics co-owner, and Duke basketball alum and dad, Steve Pagliuca. Steve Pagliuca, really appreciate the time. Talk about the Bain business first, then we'll talk about the Celtics.
Well, Bain has been a fantastic experience for me. I started out as a young consultant. I was actually going to get a doctorate in economics at Harvard, and I couldn't afford it, so I got a summer job at Bain when it was a small company, the consulting firm. And I enjoyed it so much, they made me a full-time offer, so I just got an MBA and went there. And they had talked about, when I joined, forming something in the future. And this, when I joined, was 1982. They said, sometime in the future, we're going to take these consulting skills and apply that to investing into businesses. And at the time, BCG, Bain, McKinsey were really developing state-of-the-art business analytic tools. Right. But Bain was the first one, and I think today really the only one, to start a division that would invest and do venture capital in business. Mitt Romney came over and started that, and I joined that in 1989. It's been a great ride.
And there's a different perspective between the Bain approach and the McKinsey's and Boston Consulting Group. I mean, you actually analyze and solve problems and have some investment opportunities to solve those problems as well.
Well, actually what happened was it started out that way, and then the companies split off in about 1991 or 92. And I think when I left there, Bain was 200 or 300 people. The consulting firm now is 6,000. And when I joined Bain Capital, we were at 12 or 15 people, and now it's 1,000 people in global. And I think started out with $36 million doing venture capital. Now it's an $80 billion asset business that's global. It's just been a great run. And it's proven that those consulting skills applied to businesses. And secondly, the theory back then was we put the Bain Partners money and our own money into these deals. So we're very aligned with our investors. We're the most aligned group out there. Somewhere between around 10% of the capital comes from people in the company. So our investors love that we're in there with them side by side and aligned. And then they love that we can, in these markets, apply those consulting skills to kind of grow and transform businesses. So the model has really worked out well over the last 30 years or so.
You purchase a piece of the Celtics. Talk about that story and how that happened.
Well, that's a great story. I got a call from Wick Grossbeck one day, and he had known me. Our daughters went to school together, And his wife had said he needed a partner to buy the Celtics. And his wife said, I knew basketball. I played at Duke. And I think I had built a little small half court at my house because I'm a basketball fanatic. And she said, you ought to call Steve because he's done LBOs and he could be helpful. And Wick called me, and we'd known each other a little bit from school, but we really hit it off. And he really sat me down, and I showed up my Celtics regalia, and he said, let's partner up and go on this quest to buy the Celtics. And at the time, that was in 2003. The team hadn't won in 16 years, and the revenues were going down, and it wasn't the day that we have today. Yeah. But we really did it. We both loved the Celtics, and we did it as a labor of love to try to bring a championship back. And we were able to do that in 6 years, thankfully, and now we're trying to do it again.
Incredible transformation, the speed with which you restored a sense of business values and brand values of the Celtics is beyond anything you could study in Business 101. How'd you do it?
We really had three strategic objectives when we purchased the club. The first one, we always wanted to win a championship. And there's a whole set of things underneath there. We needed to get more scouting, invest in state-of-the-art analytics, invest in coaching, invest in doing better in the draft. So that whole basketball side was really important. And then the second piece was, whether you win or lost, we wanted to make a better experience for the fans. And at the time we bought the club, they really hadn't used much technology. They had an old video board that was grainy, and they weren't really emphasizing, let's get the players engaged with the fans and the club engaged with the plan. So we wanted to improve the fan experience. And the third piece was, we wanted to make the Celtics, given the incredible brand and what they do in the community, much more relevant to the community. So we started the Boston Shamrock Foundation, Boston Celtics Shamrock Foundation, with our whole ownership group. And that's become one of the leading, kind of charitable through sports organizations in the country. And we've given away millions of dollars and impacted many, many groups. So that was our plan. We knew we could get better on the community front, and we have. We knew we could make the fan experience better. What we didn't know is, could we actually get a championship? And Danny Ainge and Doc Rivers and Brad Stevens, have done a fantastic job both winning one, and now we're on the way rebuilding again.
What's it like in an environment where you have a baseball-crazed World Series champion, most recently Red Sox, you have a Patriots dynasty, and the Bruins are everybody's team too? It's pretty competitive in this market, isn't it?
The funny thing is, it's actually not. We're one of the few markets that I've seen in the country that we are very close to the Red Sox ownership group, the Patriots. Bob and Jonathan Kraft are longtime friends before they even bought the team. Boston's a small town. The Bruins are our landlord and partner in the Celtics, and our success has been their success because they own the building, and the building's getting filled. So we do lots of things together. We all work with the Children's Hospital. So it's not that competitive. And secondly, we think we have the greatest sports fans in the world. When the team was losing for 16 years, when we didn't own it, people like myself, and we were still going to the games. They still had 16,000 a night. It wasn't a capacity, but it still had a great following. When we bought the team and they knew we were investing and gave it hope, the sales started to go up, the stadium started to fill up, and they really bought into the fact that you had a group, an ownership group that's broad-based throughout the city that really wanted to turn the franchise around. So we're really thankful to be in a town like this where in the tough times the fans support us, and we owe them a championship.
And I'll bet you if you took some kind of a metric and you created it, and you talked about fan avidity, plus if there was some way to quantify getting along with other owners, it's a pretty robust combination.
It is, and so we just haven't had that sense of competition because the Red Sox have done great and they're filled up. The Patriots have got championships. We have a championship and we're in the finals and contending again. And the Crafts just came to our game. The Henrys just came to our game. We go to their games, and so it's a virtuous circle in Boston. The only problem is, the people who've grown up here in the last 20 years, the kids are very blessed. I mean, many cities, they don't have a championship in anything. Right. And we've had parades here, 7, 8 times for the various sports teams.
And Boston Marathon, incredible, charitable, Boston strong, that whole feeling. Disappointed about the Olympic process, the way it turned out?
Absolutely. I think we got defeated by Mother Nature. Things were starting to go well at the Olympics, and we had a fantastic plan that would have been very accretive to the city, would have created a tax base from 800,000 today in an area by Woodette Circle to hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. Created 8,000 units of housing, 1,200 low-income housing, 100,000 jobs. So it's very compelling, and no money from the government involved at all. I think when that snowstorm hit, it put a malaise on us. People couldn't get to work, and they said, how are we going to have the Olympics? We can't even get to work. Now, the funny thing is, LA's doing a great job out there. They don't even have a T. So you don't really need a T for the Olympics, but it really set us back. It had a slow start, then set us back with some politics, unfortunate politics. I really think it could have been fantastic. The good news is, out of that effort, there's been now a focus on that Widett Circle area, which right now is very underutilized. And there are already plans, the mayor's looking at plans for his kind of 2030 plan, incorporating a lot of things we did for the Olympics. And we also made a big effort to bring everything we learned out to LA. So we had done a massive financial plan. I think people said it was the largest plan ever, 10 years in advance of the Olympics, with data on every site and every revenue and every dollar and how you would do it. And the LA committee, we give that all to them. We've given our insurance people to them. So we hope to get them off to a good start and hope they win it.
Well, and Scott Blackman, the USOC guys, and Larry Probst, and all of those people are obviously tremendously appreciative of that. And the untold story that you just kind of told a little bit of, the legacy factor of an Olympics properly done can be beneficial to the local community just by putting the bid package together, even if you don't get the games.
Absolutely, and you know, look, I didn't like the outcome, but the process was a great process. And it brought together academia, it brought together the government, it brought together business people to focus on what is Boston going to look like in 2030. We all viewed it as using the Olympics as a catalyst for Boston. It wasn't so Boston could build the Taj Mahal. We had in fact, the new 2020 agenda allowed us to build a temporary stadium that you'd buy for $175 million in a box and put it up. Then you take it down and you have all this land that you could use for housing and retail and all the things we desperately need in Boston. So it got a great dialogue going. I've actually never seen that community come together as well as it did for that. Unfortunately, you know, a large snowstorm and some I think, very sophisticated political opposition with the internet and the rest set us back, and I wish I could have done a better job getting that message out there, but there wasn't enough time to turn around public sentiment without risking losing the games, and so LA, I think, has a really good shot, and it was best for us to step back and say, you know, let's have America get it, even though Boston's not going to get it.
The bottom line, as far as shifting gears to the NBA itself, mid-'80s franchise prices, $32.5 million. Now, you know, nearly $1 billion, well over that. Is it the Steve Ballmer bid? Is it the Adam Silver, to David Stern? Is it the partnership with the players? Is it your particular partners as owners? Is it the TV contract? There are a lot of issues. Combination?
I think it's all of the above. And really, what you've seen, if you look at the major driver of the increase in value in sports, it's the fact that people can get entertainment in any way they want it right now. And the traditional model of, you know, when I grew up, three channels and commercials, that's been all turned on its head with TiVo, with on-demand, with the internet, with clips. And so what's happened is sports in general, and the NBA, I think in particular, have been a hot commodity because people really want to see it live. Secondly, in today's sports, you know, the NBA is a non-contact sport and a fantastic game where the fans and television get really close to that game. It's a great television game. It's a great game to be in stadium. And so it has really captured the consciousness. I think David Stern was a genius, you know, in building the league, and Adam Silver has been there for many, many years, and he's also a genius. So we've been blessed, I think, to have two of the best commissioners that I've ever seen in sports.
And a seamless transition.
A seamless transition, back to back. And Adam is of the generation that, you know, he's kind of grown up in media with the internet, you know, with Snapchat, with Instagram, and the NBA under David and Adam has really gotten ahead of that, and they've gotten global as well. So I think the real factor is that those properties are very, very valuable as you have lots of television bandwidth and broadcast and content needs. And this is the number one content that, you know, you can't fast forward through. You want to see the games. So it's great for advertisers, it's global, and it's growing. So that's really increased the value.
Let's talk to the Reuters international audience for a second relative to the Celtics brand. Do people around the world know the Celtics?
Absolutely. I got back in the fall from attending our game in Madrid, and I have some great pictures on my cell phone of you walk in the hotel, there's like a sea of green with Celtics uniforms, and I thought, oh, there's fans from the U.S. coming over. It was all Spaniards. I go in the stadium, and I was getting pulled into the stands to get pictures with people with Celtics jerseys. The stadium was like a quarter or a half green. So the game has really globalized, and this media has been a particular, you know, enhancer of that, a catalyst for that, because people can watch our games. One of the number one things in China is people going to work. They'll put on the cell phone and they'll watch a Celtics game, you know, while they're going to work. We have huge contracts over there that have gone up exponentially. And Europe, the game is growing itself, and so it's just kind of feeding upon itself as a global game where the whole world loves it.
What does the NBA look like 5 years from now, broadly defined?
I think you'll see the NBA continue to grow, continue to prosper. I don't know if we'll have teams in other continents or spaces, but I think we probably will in the next 10 to 20 years. Right now, the content is being voraciously looked at in Europe and in Asia, in South America, and when I go to the Middle East, people have Celtics hats on. So the game is growing in popularity. I think it's the second largest growing game in China. It's now number 2, moved to number 2, right behind soccer. Yeah. And I think you'll see soccer and basketball becoming huge global sports.
All right, let's have some fun now. Let's talk Duke. We both have, you have played, kids playing there, my daughters. It's an incredible basketball program. The ACC is incredible as well. Coach K, amazing. What's the one thing you could say about the Duke basketball brand?
It's about as close as a religious experience as you can have when you go into that stadium, and it just pulsates with the kind of camaraderie. It's fun. Everybody's jumping up and down. Faces are painted. It brings the whole university together, and I think it's college sports at its best. Coach K runs a high-integrity program. The individuals, I know the individuals on that team, they're incredible individuals, and he's had a history of that for, I think, 36 years now. So we're very blessed that a couple of my sons could play there. I played there. I was the worst player on the worst Duke team in the last 50 years. It's kind of like Bob Beeman's long jump record.
Yeah.
It won't be broken. I'm probably the worst forever that ever played for Duke.
Well, that's a silly comment to make, but I'm sure you don't really mean it that way. But you treasure your memories, and your kids treasure their memories.
Absolutely. I treasure my memory when I was there. I was there in a period where there were 3 coaches, I think, over 4 years, and I left coinciding with Coach K coming in a couple of years later. And Coach K, Bill Foster and Coach K's really turned the program around and brought it back to its heydays of the 60s. So
that's 37 years ago?
I think he came 36 years ago.
So Shane Battier told me that he majored in and graduated in comparative religions at Duke, and I thought for the longest time he meant Coach K against Dean Smith, but I guess there are other.
That's it. The funny thing is, my oldest son who played at Duke, I brought him down there to look at Duke. He was a really good basketball player here at Belmont Hill. And he fell in love with Duke, and we went to senior night, and Shane Battier was on that team.
Interesting.
And it's a great story on that team. Trajan Langdon got hit by, I think, a Georgia Tech player, knocked out, and with Duke was down 15-0, and they wheeled Trajan Langdon out. And so Coach K called the guys and said, they can't do that to our guy. We've got to really win this game. And Duke scored the next 28 points and destroyed the team. And then we went back and we got to meet Shane Battier, who became a very great role model for my son. So we go way back with Duke.
It's a full circle, quite clearly. From a college basketball perspective, and we've seen both sides of the one and done, how do you change it? First of all, do you believe in the system the way it is today? And second, how could you maneuver it or change it if you had the power to do it?
Well, I would change it if I could do it. It's going to take, I think, a complex set of negotiations with the players' union. My personal opinion is it is very valuable for these young men to stay in school. And there may be some creative ways to do that, and we've got to work through that with the players' union, with the NBA. But I think there's nothing better than having a college education. The more maturity, I think it's good for everyone. Now I see the issue. If someone like LeBron is, and he's the rare exception. Many of the players are not ready like LeBron was, and for everyone like LeBron, there are 5 or 6 that are going to take 3, 4, 5 years to get ready. Some like Sean Livingston come out and they're slight and they get injured. So I'd love to see a system where we can find a way to have a win-win where the players stay longer in school, but we don't deny them their opportunity as well. So there's a lot of creative ways we can do that. And it's one of the things that certainly I'm going to talk about and work on for the next few years.
Well, you may have the ability to transcend a lot of these issues because from a coach's perspective, every coach would say he coaches based on what the rules allow. Don't let me coach differently than what the rules allow. I'll coach up to the rules.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But it's something that's got to be discussed, and hopefully we can get a win-win situation for the kids and the players and the schools.
Celtics and Duke, you certainly have your fill of brands and really appreciate the time and not only that, but ongoing continued success, Bain Capital as well. Thank you very much for joining me, Steve.
I've been very fortunate to be part of these places, which are a lot bigger than me, and I'm very blessed to do that, and hopefully we'll keep on winning in the Celtics and Duke and Bain Capital as well.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show, Alex Cohen. Associate producer, Bethel Habte. Assistance provided by Tanner Simpkins and Carlos Waddick. And the executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.